I always thought Clara and I had built something unbreakable. We met at a coffee shop in Seattle, her laughter spilling over a spilled latte, my clumsy apology turning into a first date. 12 years later, we had a cozy house in Portland, 2 kids, Ellie and Max, and a life that felt like a postcard. I'm a software engineer, working long hours at a tech firm, while Clara, a freelance graphic designer, juggled her projects with parenting. Our evenings were filled with board games, movie nights, and stolen moments of affection when the kids were asleep. But looking back, I missed the signs. The late-night phone calls she dismissed as client work, the way her eyes lingered on her screen, the subtle distance in her touch. I trusted her implicitly, blind to the fracture forming. It was a Tuesday when I first sensed something off. I came home early, a rare treat, expecting to surprise Clara with takeout from her favorite Thai place. The house was quiet, the kids at a sleepover. Clara was in her home office, door ajar, her voice low and unfamiliar. Giggly, almost conspiratorial. I paused, heart thudding, and peeked through the crack. She was on a video call, her face lit by the screen, smiling at someone I couldn't see. "You're ridiculous," she said, her tone intimate, not the professional cadence I expected. The call ended abruptly when she noticed me, her smile faltering. "Just a client," she said, too quickly, shutting her laptop. I wanted to believe her, but the air felt heavy, like a storm brewing. That night, she was overly affectionate, as if compensating, and I lay awake, replaying her words, her expression, the lie I couldn't prove. The next weeks were a blur of doubt. I started noticing patterns, her phone always face down, her sudden need for alone time at odd hours, the way she changed the subject when I asked about her day. I wasn't the jealous type, but the uncertainty gnawed at me. I began checking her schedule, her social media, hating myself for it. Nothing concrete, just fragments. A vague post about new connections. A receipt for a coffee shop she hadn't mentioned visiting. I told myself I was paranoid, that love meant trust. But the seed of betrayal had been planted, and it was growing, twisting my gut with every unanswered question. Clara, my Clara, was slipping away, and I was too afraid to confront the truth. The turning point came at a neighborhood barbecue. We'd been invited by our friends, Tom and Lisa, whose sprawling backyard was a summer staple. Clara was vibrant that day, her sundress catching the sunlight, her laughter drawing eyes. I was grilling with Tom when I noticed her talking to a man I didn't recognize. He was tall, mid-30s, with an easy charm. Call him Ethan, though I'd learn his name later. They stood by the drinks table, her hand brushing his arm, his smile too familiar. I watched, frozen, as she leaned closer, whispering something that made him laugh. It wasn't flirtation in the obvious sense, but it was intimate, a shared language I wasn't part of. I approached, forcing a smile, and Clara introduced him as a friend from a design project. Ethan shook my hand, his grip firm, his eyes assessing. "Heard a lot about you," he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. The rest of the evening, I kept them in my peripheral vision. They didn't interact much after that, but the air between them crackled, a silent conversation I couldn't hear. At home, I asked Clara about him, casual as I could manage. "Oh, Ethan? Just a collaborator on a logo job," she said, busying herself with dishes. But her cheeks flushed, and she avoided my gaze. I didn't push, not then, but the name Ethan lodged in my mind like a splinter. Days later, I found myself digging. I checked Clara's laptop when she was out, heart pounding, hating the man I was becoming. Her email was clean, but her design software had a shared cloud folder labeled _collab. Inside were files, logos, mock-ups, but also photos. Clara and Ethan at a cafe, laughing over coffee. Another at a park, her head on his shoulder. They weren't explicit, but they were personal moments she'd never shared with me. My chest tightened, the betrayal no longer abstract. This wasn't a client. This was something else, something deliberate. I closed the laptop, hands shaking, and sat in the dark, piecing together the timeline. How long had this been going on? Was it emotional or more? The uncertainty was a blade, cutting deeper with every question. I didn't confront her yet. I needed proof, something undeniable. But the weight of it changed me. I was short with the kids, distracted at work, my world narrowing to Clara and Ethan. I started tracking her location through our shared app, something we'd set up for safety. She was at places she hadn't mentioned, galleries, restaurants, his apartment. Each discovery was a blow, but I held back, plotting, waiting. The man I'd been trusting open was fading. In his place was someone colder, someone ready to unravel the truth, no matter the cost. The betrayal wasn't what I expected. I'd braced for late-night meetups, hidden messages, the clichés of an affair. But Clara and Ethan's connection was stranger, more insidious. I found the truth by accident, tailing her one evening when she claimed to be at a client meeting. She drove to a small theater downtown, a place I'd never heard her mention. I parked across the street, watching her slip inside, Ethan at her side. Curiosity and dread pulled me after them. The theater was dimly lit, hosting an avant-garde performance group. The show was bizarre. Actors in masks, reciting poetry, moving in synchronized patterns. Clara and Ethan weren't spectators. They were participants. They wore costumes, their faces painted, blending into the troupe. The performance was a ritual of sorts, not physical in the traditional sense but deeply intimate. They mirrored each other's movements, their hands brushing, their eyes locked in a way that felt more private than any embrace. The audience clapped, oblivious to the subtext, but I saw it. A bond that excluded me, a world they'd built without me. Afterward, I followed them to a bar where the troupe gathered. Clara and Ethan sat close, their conversation animated, their laughter a secret code. They weren't lovers in the conventional sense, but this was worse. A betrayal of spirit, of loyalty, of the life we'd promised each other. I drove home, mind reeling. This wasn't about physicality. It was about her choosing him, sharing a part of herself she'd never offered me. The theater, the art, the connection, it was a side of Clara I didn't know existed, and she'd given it to Ethan. At home, I scoured her laptop again, finding a private blog she'd kept. Entries detailed her awakening through the troupe, how Ethan saw her soul, how she felt alive in ways she hadn't in years. She wrote about me, too, how I was steady but stagnant, how our life felt like a cage. Each word was a dagger, carving away the man I thought I was. Couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. The kids noticed my mood, asking why I was sad. I lied, protecting them, but the truth was consuming me. Clara's betrayal wasn't a fling. It was a reinvention, a rejection of our shared history. I started researching Ethan. He was a performance artist, single, with a modest following online. His work was abstract, pretentious, but it clearly captivated Clara. I found their troupe schedule, their private chats in a messaging app she thought I'd never access. Every discovery fueled my resolve. This wasn't just about her leaving me emotionally. It was about her building a new life, one where I didn't belong. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. I needed a plan, something to match the cruelty of her deception. My life became a dual existence. The husband playing his role at home and the investigator unraveling Clara's secret world. I smiled at her over dinner, kissed her goodnight, all while tracking her every move. I installed a keylogger on her laptop, a step I'd once have found unthinkable. Captured everything, her emails, her chats, her searches. The data painted a vivid picture. Clara and Ethan's troupe was more than a hobby. It was a cult of creativity, a space where they shed their mundane selves. She wrote to him about transcending, about how their performances were a sacred bond. I read her words with a mix of disgust and fascination, marveling at how far she'd drifted. I attended another of their shows, this time anonymously, wearing a cap and glasses. The performance was hypnotic, unsettling. Clara and Ethan led a piece where they stood inches apart, reciting lines about souls entwining. The audience was entranced, but I saw the truth. This was their love letter, performed in plain sight. I left before the end, unable to stomach more, but not before snapping photos. Evidence, I told myself, though I wasn't sure for what. Divorce? Exposure? My mind wasn't clear, but my heart was hardening. At work, I was slipping. My boss noticed my distraction, pulling me aside to ask if I was okay. I lied, blaming stress, but the truth was I was consumed. I started following Ethan, learning his routines. He lived in a loft downtown, taught workshops, met Clara often. I watched them once, outside a gallery, her hand lingering on his. It wasn't physical in the way I'd feared, but it was worse. Her eyes held a spark I hadn't seen in years. I began to hate her, not just for the betrayal but for making me this person, this shadow of myself. I confided in no one, not even Tom, who'd known us forever. The isolation was suffocating, but I couldn't risk Clara finding out. I needed control, a way to reclaim what she'd taken. I started planning, vague at first, exposing her, ruining Ethan's career. But the ideas grew darker, more precise. I researched the troupe, their funding, their reputation. They were niche but respected, with grants and sponsors. I found their weak points. A shady investor, a history of unpaid performers. I didn't know how I'd use this yet, but it felt like power, a weapon forming in my hands. Clara thought she'd escaped me, built a new world. She was wrong. I'd tear it down, piece by piece, and she'd feel the weight of her choices. The man she married was gone, replaced by someone she'd never see coming. The plan took shape slowly, fueled by months of silent rage. I couldn't confront Clara directly. She'd deny, deflect, maybe even leave. No, I needed something bigger, something that would dismantle her new world without her suspecting me until it was too late. The troupe was her sanctuary, Ethan her muse. I'd target both, but not with violence or confrontation. My revenge would be surgical, psychological, a mirror to the betrayal she'd inflicted. I'd make her feel the loss, the exposure, the way I had. I started with Ethan. His career hinged on reputation, so I began undermining it. Using an anonymous account, I posted on art forums, questioning his troupe's ethics, hinting at financial mismanagement. I leaked snippets from their private chats, not the personal ones, but enough to suggest favoritism among performers. The art community is small, gossipy. The seeds spread fast. I contacted their investor, posing as a concerned donor, and sent doctored emails suggesting Ethan was skimming funds. None of it was provable, but doubt doesn't need proof. Their funding stalled, gigs dried up. Ethan's stress was visible when I tailed him, his charm fraying. Clara felt it too. She was moodier at home, snapping at the kids, distracted. She didn't know I was behind it, but she sensed her world shifting. I played the supportive husband, asking about her work, offering comfort. Maybe the troupe's not worth the stress, I said once, planting the idea. She brushed it off, but I saw the crack in her resolve. I escalated, hacking the troupe's website to post a manifesto accusing Ethan of exploiting performers. The backlash was swift. Performers quit, sponsors pulled out. Clara came home crying one night, saying the troupe might fold. I held her, hiding my satisfaction, my heart cold. The kids were my only pause. Ellie asked why Mommy was sad, and I felt a pang. This wasn't just about Clara. It was our family, but the betrayal was too deep, the wound too raw. I justified it. Clara had chosen this, not me. I doubled down, targeting her directly now. I sent anonymous emails to her clients, attaching screenshots of her blog, framing her as unprofessional, unstable. Her freelance work slowed, her confidence waned. She started questioning herself, her choices, just as I had. The cruelty of it felt right, a balance to her deception. By now, the troupe was crumbling, Ethan a pariah. Clara was unraveling, her spark gone. I wasn't done, though. The final blow was coming, something to ensure she'd never rebuild, never forget. I'd orchestrated this perfectly, a symphony of ruin, and she was oblivious to the conductor. The man she'd betrayed was no longer her husband. He was her reckoning, and the stage was set for her fall. Clara was a ghost in our home now, her laughter replaced by sighs, her vibrant energy dulled. The troupe's collapse and her dwindling freelance gigs had shaken her. But she clung to Ethan, their meetings more frequent, desperate. I watched through the keylogger, their messages a mix of panic and defiance. Plans to rebuild, to start a new project. It infuriated me, her refusal to let go, but I played my part flawlessly. I cooked dinners, helped with the kids' homework, asked about her day with feigned concern. "You seem stressed," I'd say, my voice soft, hiding the architect of her ruin. She'd nod, vague, unaware I was the storm. I deepened my sabotage. The troops' website, now a shell, became my canvas. I posted forged reviews from ex-members, accusing Ethan of manipulation, Clara of enabling him. The art scene buzzed, their names tarnished. I sent anonymous tips to local blogs, framing their new project as a scam. Clara came home one night, eyes red, saying a major venue had canceled their pitch. "It's like someone's out to get us," she whispered. I hugged her, my heart a stone, and said, "It'll pass." But it wouldn't. I was relentless, a shadow she'd never suspect. The kids were my anchor, their innocence a reminder of what I was dismantling. Max asked why Mommy was always tired, and I deflected, hating the lie. But Clara's betrayal had fractured our family first. She'd chosen Ethan's world over ours. I justified my cruelty. She'd feel what I felt, the slow bleed of trust. At night, I pored over her blog, her words about me, steady but stagnant, fueling my resolve. I hacked her social media, posting subtle, erratic updates that made her seem unhinged. Her followers dwindled, her reputation fraying. She noticed, blaming stress, never imagining her husband's hand. My obsession grew a second life. At work, I was a zombie, my coding sloppy, my mind on Clara's next move. My boss gave me a warning, but I didn't care. This was my purpose now, destroying her sanctuary, exposing her to the world. Ethan was crumbling too, his loft for sale, his workshops empty. I watched him once, alone at a bar, his charm gone. It wasn't enough. I needed Clara to see him fall, to feel the weight of her choices. The next phase was riskier, more personal, but I was ready. I'd been patient, methodical, but the time for subtlety was ending. She'd built a life without me. I'd ensure it burned, and she'd watch every ember fade. I shifted tactics, moving from shadows to spotlight. Clara and Ethan's new project, a small performance at a community center, was their last hope. I couldn't let it succeed. I'd learned their routine. Rehearsals late at night, Clara sneaking out after the kids were asleep. I followed her once, watching through a window as they choreographed, their movements still electric, defiant. It twisted my gut, their bond unbroken despite my efforts. I needed to break it publicly, to humiliate them where they felt safest. I created a fake persona, Art Truth, and joined local art forums, posing as a disgruntled performer. I spread rumors about their project, alleging they'd stolen ideas, mistreated collaborators. I leaked rehearsal footage, grainy clips I'd recorded, edited to look chaotic, amateurish. The community turned, posts piling up, calling them frauds. I sent the footage to the community center's board, claiming it was concerning. They canceled the event, citing reputational risks. Clara was devastated, her texts to Ethan frantic, blaming haters. I read them, savoring her despair, my face a mask of concern at home. But I wanted more than cancellation, I wanted exposure. I dug into Ethan's past, finding a brief scandal from years ago, a plagiarism accusation he'd dodged. I resurrected it, forging documents that suggested he'd done it again, this time implicating Clara. I sent them to art blogs, local papers, even Clara's remaining clients. The story spread, a slow poison. Clara's phone buzzed constantly, her face pale as she fielded calls, explaining, denying. "It's not true," she told me, tears streaming. I nodded, offering tea, my heart cold. She was unraveling, her world shrinking, and I was the unseen blade. The kids felt it worst. Ellie stopped inviting friends over, sensing the tension. I shielded them as best I could, but Clara's distraction left gaps. Forgotten lunches, missed recitals. I filled them, playing both parents, my resentment growing. She'd chosen this, I reminded myself, her awakening with Ethan over our family. I planned the next blow, a public event where their shame would be undeniable. I found a rival troupe, struggling but ambitious, and fed them Ethan's ideas, posing as a whistleblower. They'd perform his stolen work, credited to them, at a festival Clara and Ethan planned to attend. The trap was set, my revenge a tapestry of her own lies. She'd see her dreams stolen, her name erased, and I'd be there, the loving husband, watching her break. The festival was a local art scene staple, a weekend of performances and galleries. Clara and Ethan, despite their setbacks, planned to attend, hoping to network, rebuild. I saw my chance, a stage for their downfall. The rival troupe, fueled by my leaks, had prepared a performance mirroring Ethan's signature style, down to the poetic recitations and synchronized movements. I ensured Clara and Ethan would be in the audience, tipping off a friend to invite them, framing it as a must-see event. I'd be there too, blending in, watching the moment their world collapsed. The night arrived, the festival buzzing with artists and critics. Clara looked fragile, her sundress hanging loosely, Ethan at her side, his confidence forced. I sat rows behind, cap low, heart pounding. The rival troupe took the stage, and it was perfect, every gesture, every line a twisted echo of Ethan's work. Clara stiffened, her hand gripping his. Ethan's face drained, recognition dawning. The audience applauded, praising the innovative piece, unaware it was stolen. A critic nearby whispered Ethan's name, confused, and the rumor spread. By intermission, people were staring, whispering. Clara's eyes glistened, Ethan's jaw tight. I slipped out, posting from Art Truth's account. Ethan's original work performed by another troupe? Shady. I attached side-by-side clips, Ethan's rehearsals versus the rival's show. The post went viral in the art community, shared by bloggers, performers, even sponsors. Clara and Ethan left early, her face buried in her hands, his arm around her, futile. I followed at a distance, hearing her sob. How could this happen? Ethan had no answer, his career in ashes. I drove home, adrenaline surging, the taste of victory bitter but sweet. Clara didn't come home that night, texting about a friend's place. I knew she was with Ethan, clinging to their wreckage. The kids asked where she was, and I lied, my voice steady. But inside, I was planning the next strike. The festival had exposed them, but it wasn't enough. I wanted Clara to lose everything, her art, her pride, her identity. I started targeting her personally, sending anonymous messages to her remaining friends, hinting she'd betrayed them. 2. Her social circle shrank, her isolation mirroring mine. I was becoming a monster, but she'd made me this way, her betrayal the spark. The final act was near, something to ensure she'd never recover, never forget the cost of choosing Ethan over me. Clara returned home, but she was a stranger. Her eyes were hollow, her movements mechanical. The festival had broken something in her, the public theft of their work a wound she couldn't heal. Ethan was persona non grata, his name toxic in art circles, but Clara still met him, their bond a stubborn thread. I read their messages, her pleading for a way forward, his despair. It enraged me. She should have turned to me, her husband, not him. My revenge shifted focus. I'd isolate her completely, strip away her support until she had only me, then reveal my hand. I targeted her friends first. Using fake accounts, I sent messages suggesting Clara had spoken ill of them, twisting her blog's words to seem personal. One by one, they distanced themselves, their replies to her curt, their invitations gone. I hacked her email, unsubscribing her from art groups, canceling her memberships. Her world shrank to our house, the kids, and Ethan's fading orbit. She noticed, confiding in me one night, voice trembling. "Everyone's abandoning me," she said. I held her, whispering, "You've got us." My words a lie wrapped in truth. She'd have no one soon. The kids were my shield and my burden. I kept them busy, soccer, art classes, shielding them from her gloom. But Ellie asked why Mommy didn't smile anymore, and I had no answer. Clara's neglect grew, her focus on saving Ethan, not our family. I used it, documenting her absences, her missed commitments, building a case for later. I wasn't sure what divorce, custody, but I needed leverage. Meanwhile, I pushed Ethan further, spreading rumors he'd fled town, owing debts. His loft sold, his phone disconnected. Clara's texts to him went unanswered, her lifeline cut. I escalated at home, subtle but cruel. I accidentally deleted her design portfolio, blaming a computer glitch. Her backups were gone, my doing. She cried for days, her career in tatters. I offered to help recover it, knowing it was futile, my concern a mask. She was breaking, her identity as an artist, a friend, a mother eroding. I felt a flicker of guilt, but her betrayal loomed larger. Her sacred bond with Ethan, her dismissal of our life. She'd chosen this path. I was just guiding her to its end. The final blow was forming, a revelation that would shatter her, leaving her to face the truth of my vengeance. I was ready to step from the shadows, to show her the cost of her new world. Clara was a shell, her spark extinguished. She barely left the house, her phone silent, her art abandoned. Ethan had vanished, likely fleeing the scandal I'd orchestrated. I'd won, but it wasn't enough. She still didn't know I was behind it, still saw me as her anchor. I needed her to see the truth, to feel the betrayal reversed, to know her pain was my design. The penultimate step was a spectacle, a final public humiliation before the ultimate reveal. I organized an art exhibit, posing as a local curator under a false name. I invited the art community, including Clara's former friends, clients, and critics. The theme was betrayal in art, a cruel irony. I included a piece, anonymously submitted, my creation, using Clara's blog entries, her words about transcending with Ethan, projected onto a canvas with distorted images of their performances. The text was edited to seem confessional, accusing her of stealing Ethan's ideas, betraying her family. It was a lie, but believable, her own words twisted against her. I convinced Clara to attend, saying it'd inspire her, lift her spirits. She hesitated but agreed, desperate for connection. The night of the exhibit, she arrived, pale, clinging to my arm. The crowd parted as we approached the piece, her face projected, her words echoing. Gasps rippled through the room, eyes turning to her. She froze, recognizing her blog, her voice trembling. I didn't, she stammered. People whispered, some sympathetic, others judgmental. A critic approached, asking if it was true. She fled, sobbing, leaving me to play the shocked husband. The fallout was immediate. Blogs covered the exhibit, calling it raw, but questioning Clara's integrity. Her last connections severed, her name synonymous with scandal. She came home, locking herself in her office, refusing to speak. The kids were at a friend's, spared the chaos. I knocked, offering comfort, but she screamed to leave her alone. I did, my heart a mix of triumph and ash. I'd stripped her of everything. Her art, her friends, her pride. One step remained. Revealing my role, making her see the mirror of her betrayal. I planned it carefully, a quiet moment where she'd face the truth. No escape. The man she'd married was gone, replaced by her judge, her executioner, and she'd know it soon. Clara barely spoke after the exhibit. She moved through our house like a specter, her eyes vacant, her hands trembling when she poured coffee. The kids noticed, their questions sharper. Ellie asking if Mommy was sick, Max clinging to me for reassurance. I shielded them, but my focus was Clara. She'd lost everything. Her art, her friends, her reputation. Ethan was gone, his disappearance confirmed by a mutual acquaintance who'd seen him leave town. Yet Clara didn't suspect me, still leaning on me as her last tether. It was time to sever that, to show her the architect of her ruin. I planned the reveal meticulously. I couldn't just confess. It had to be a performance, a mirror to the troops' rituals she'd loved. I waited for a quiet evening, the kids at a sleepover, the house silent. Clara was in her office, staring at a blank screen, her design career a memory. I'd prepared a package, screenshots of my anonymous posts, logs of my hacks, a timeline of every step I'd taken to dismantle her world. I printed her blog entries, highlighting her words about me, her stagnant husband. It was a dossier of her betrayal and my vengeance, bound like a script for her final act. That night, I cooked her favorite meal, a gesture to lower her guard. She ate mechanically, barely meeting my eyes. I spoke softly, asking about her day, her plans. She mumbled about starting over, maybe teaching art. Her voice was hollow, but the flicker of hope enraged me. She still thought she could rebuild. I cleared the plates, my heart steady, and suggested we talk in her office. About us, I said, my tone gentle. She nodded, unsuspecting, following me like a lamb. I locked the door behind us, not for drama but control. This was our stage and she'd hear every line. I sat her down, the dossier hidden in a drawer. I started slowly, asking if she remembered our early years, our promises. Her eyes softened, guilt surfacing. I've always loved you, she said, a lie I'd once believed. I smiled, cold, and pulled out the first page. Her blog, her words about Ethan's sacred bond. Her face paled, confusion creeping in. Where did you get this? She whispered. I didn't answer, stacking more pages, her messages to Ethan, photos of their performances. Her breath hitched, realization dawning. But she wasn't ready for the full truth. Not yet. I wanted her to feel the weight, to beg for answers, before I showed her the puppet strings I'd pulled. Clara's hands shook as she stared at the pages, her blog's intimate confessions now a weapon in my hands. Why do you have this? She stammered, her voice breaking. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch, savoring her fear. I know everything, I said finally, my tone even. Not the husband she knew but a stranger. I slid the dossier across the desk, its weight thudding against her fingers. Open it, I said. She hesitated, tears welling, but obeyed, flipping through screenshots of Art Truth's posts. My anonymous emails, the forged documents that ruined Ethan. Her breath caught, eyes darting to mine, searching for the man she'd married. You did this? She whispered, disbelief warring with horror. I nodded, detailing every step, hacking her laptop, leaking her blog, orchestrating the festival theft, the exhibit's betrayal piece. I spoke calmly, a prosecutor laying out a case, watching her crumble. You built a world without me, I said. With him. You called me stagnant, Clara. You chose Ethan's soul over our family. Her sobs filled the room, but I felt no pity. She'd performed her betrayal in public. I'd matched it, surpassing her cruelty. Why? She choked out, clutching the dossier like it could undo the truth. I stood, towering over her. Because you broke us? I said, my voice low, sharp. You didn't just cheat. You erased me, our life, for some pretentious art fantasy. I made you feel what I felt. Alone, exposed, worthless. She shook her head, muttering apologies, but they were empty, too late. I pulled out the final piece, a USB drive with a video I'd edited, a montage of her performances with Ethan, her blog's words narrated over it, ending with the exhibit's projection. This is who you are, I said, plugging it into her laptop. The screen lit up, her face staring back, her voice confessing her awakening. She covered her mouth, sobbing, as the video looped. I left her there, the video playing, her office a prison of her own making. She didn't follow, didn't speak. I slept in the guest room, the house heavy with her defeat. The kids were due back tomorrow, and I'd shield them, but Clara's world was ash. She'd live with this, her betrayal mirrored, her life dismantled by the man she'd underestimated. But I wasn't done. The final act wasn't just her knowing. It was ensuring she'd never escape the consequences, never rebuild. I lay awake, planning, my heart a mix of triumph and emptiness. She'd feel this forever, and I'd make sure of it. My vengeance a shadow she'd never outrun. Clara changed overnight, her spirit broken. She barely left her office, emerging only to eat or stare blankly at the kids' drawings on the fridge. Ellie and Max sensed the rift, their questions unanswered, their hugs met with weak smiles. I was their rock, handling school runs, bedtime stories, while Clara drifted, a ghost in our home. She didn't fight, didn't accuse. She accepted her ruin, the dossier's truth a chain around her heart. I watched, detached, my victory hollow but complete. She'd betrayed me, and I'd repaid it tenfold, her world reduced to regret. I tightened the screws, subtle but relentless. I canceled her credit cards, claiming a security breach, leaving her dependent on me. I changed the Wi-Fi password, locking her out of her online escape. Her phone, still monitored, showed no messages, no outreach. Her isolation was total. When she asked for money or access, I'd sigh, promising to fix it, delaying, watching her shrink. She stopped asking about Ethan, his absence a wound I deepened by spreading rumors he'd fled to Europe, abandoning her. She believed it, her last hope snuffed out. The kids were my only pause. Ellie drew a picture of our family, Clara's face sad, and I felt a pang. I'd protected them, but this was their mother, broken by my hand. I justified it. Clara's betrayal had risked their stability first, her sacred bond, a rejection of us all. Still, I softened for them, keeping routines normal, shielding them from her despair. But with Clara, I was merciless. I left the dossier on her desk, a reminder, and played the video randomly, its audio echoing through the house. She'd flinch, tears falling, but never confronted me. She knew she'd lost. I started planning her future, a cage of my design. Divorce was too kind. I wanted her trapped, reliant, her every move tied to me. I contacted a lawyer, not for separation but to secure our assets, ensuring she'd have nothing if she tried to leave. I spoke to her parents, framing her as unstable, planting seeds for their support of me, not her. Her world was mine to shape, her betrayal the justification for every cruel step. The final act was near, not a single blow but a lifelong sentence. She'd live in the wreckage I'd built, her every day a reminder of her choice and my response. I was no longer just her husband. I was her judge, her jailer, and she'd never escape the truth of what she'd done. I wanted Clara's punishment to endure, a monument to her betrayal. The dossier and video were temporary. I needed something permanent, a scar she'd carry forever. I found it in her art, the heart of her identity. She'd stopped designing, her passion buried under shame, but I'd resurrect it, twisted to serve my purpose. I created a website, anonymous, titled The Art of Betrayal. It featured her blog entries, her performance photos with Ethan, and a fictionalized narrative framing her as a cautionary tale, an artist who abandoned her family for fleeting fame. The site was sleek, professional, optimized for search engines. Her name, Clara, was everywhere, ensuring it'd haunt her forever. I launched it quietly, sharing links on art forums, social media, even emailing it to her former clients as industry news. Spread not viral but steady, a slow poison in her digital shadow. People commented, some pitying, others condemning. I monitored the traffic, seeing her name searched, the site climbing Google's ranks. Clara didn't know yet, but she would. I left clues, a browser open on her laptop, the site's URL scribbled on a note. When she found it, she'd see her betrayal immortalized, her story no longer hers but mine, rewritten to punish. At home, I maintained the facade, kind to the kids, civil to her. But I tightened her cage. I enrolled her in a local art class, claiming it'd help her heal, but chose one taught by a rival who'd shunned her after the exhibit. She went, humiliated, her presence a reminder of her fall. I donated her old designs to a charity auction, credited to Anonymous, erasing her legacy. Each act was small, deliberate, a thread in the web trapping her. She complied, too broken to resist, her eyes dull with acceptance. The kids adapted, their resilience a bittersweet ache. I was their hero, but I knew this wasn't just Clara's punishment. It was ours, too. Yet her betrayal justified it. Her choice to prioritize Ethan over us the root of this ruin. I checked the website daily, its views growing, her name now synonymous with failure. She found it one night, her gasp audible from her office. I didn't comfort her, letting the truth sink in. She'd live with this, her every attempt to rebuild tainted by my creation. The final act was complete, but I had one last gesture, a personal seal on her sentence, ensuring she'd never forget the man she'd wronged. The end wasn't loud, no confrontation or tears. It was quiet, final, a seal on Clara's fate. I chose our anniversary, a cruel irony, to deliver the last blow. The kids were with my parents, the house ours for the night. Clara expected nothing, her days a blur of routine and regret. I'd watched her for weeks, the website's shadow consuming her. She'd stopped checking her phone, stopped trying. The art class had ended, her rival's disdain a final humiliation. She was mine to shape, her betrayal's cost etched into her soul. I prepared a gift, wrapped in silver paper, placed on her pillow. Inside was a journal, its cover embossed with her name, its pages blank except for the first. I'd written a single line, "Your story is mine now." Live with it. With it was a printed screenshot of the website's homepage, her face staring back, the words, "The Art of Betrayal" bold. I included a note, my handwriting steady. "Every time you try to rise, this will follow." I made sure of it. It wasn't just a reminder, it was a promise. The site was coded to persist, hosted on servers she'd never trace, her name forever tied to her shame. She found it that night, her fingers trembling as she unwrapped it. I stood in the doorway, watching her read, her face crumpling. She didn't speak, didn't look at me, just clutched the journal, tears falling. I said nothing, letting the silence speak. She knew now, fully, the depth of my vengeance. Not just her world destroyed, but her future chained to my will. I'd taken her art, her pride, her freedom, turning her betrayal into a life sentence. She'd live with me, our kids, our home, but never escape the truth of what she'd done, or what I'd become. I walked away, leaving her to her prison. The kids returned the next day, their laughter a stark contrast to her silence. I played my role, father, provider, while Clara faded, a shadow in our lives. The website grew, its story spreading, her name a cautionary tale. I checked it sometimes, not for joy but confirmation. She'd never rebuild, never forget. My revenge was complete, cruel as her betrayal, a mirror of her choice to choose Ethan over us. I wasn't the man I'd been, but neither was she the woman I'd loved. We were bound now, not by love but by consequence, and I'd ensured she'd carry that weight forever.